And I showed it to my parents, and I was so scared to show it to them because everything I made, I hid, not because they were, harsh or unsupportive.
For almost 30 years, Tim McGraw and Faith Hill have basically been country music's ultimate power couple. The ones everybody looks at and thinks, man, they've got it all together. But behind all those red carpet photos and stadium lights, there's a whole different side to the story. And their youngest daughter, Audrey, just decided it was time to speak up. She didn't hold back either. She gave a totally raw, unfiltered look at what was actually going on behind those closed doors. And honestly, it changes everything we thought we knew about them. Ready to hear what life in that house was really like? Straight from the daughter who was actually there. The image everyone thinks they know. Tim McGraw and Faith Hill didn't just build a marriage. They built an empire. One so polished that for nearly 30 years, fans have treated their relationship like some untouchable fairy tale that shouldn't even exist in the real world. 3 daughters, dozens of awards, a joint tour that basically set the gold standard for every celebrity couple in Nashville. On paper, it looks flawless. Honestly, almost too flawless. And that's usually where the problem starts with families like this. When the image gets that shiny, people can't help but look for the cracks. They just start assuming something has to be fake. They expect tension behind closed doors, or a daughter who secretly resents growing up in the massive shadow of 2 superstars. They figure it's a family that puts on a great show for the cameras, only to live something a lot colder the second those cameras turn off. Honestly, that instinct isn't random. We've all watched enough celebrity marriages crash and burn, enough public reconciliations turn out to be totally fake, and enough happy family photos followed by a messy divorce just a year later. Skepticism is pretty much everybody's default setting by now. When a couple actually stays together this long, in an industry this brutal, people just assume they're simply better at hiding the mess than everyone else. Not that the mess doesn't exist. So when their youngest daughter Audrey started speaking up publicly, fans totally leaned in close. Because if there was ever a crack in that McGraw-Hill fairy tale, Audrey would definitely be the one to know about it. She grew up right in the middle of it. She saw the tour buses, the awards shows, and the insane schedules that would drain anybody. She saw the version of her parents that the public never gets a glimpse of. When she opened her mouth, people were fully expecting a little drama, some underlying tension, or at least something subtle to read between the lines. And that expectation didn't just come out of thin air. Audrey McGraw isn't just a background character in her family's story anymore. She's been carving out her own path as a musician and model, stepping into spaces that have nothing to do with her famous last name and earning attention on her own merit. That actually matters here, because it means Audrey has every reason in the world to want to be seen as her own person, totally separate from her parents' heavy legacy. A kid trying to build their own identity is usually the exact person who starts creating some distance from their famous parents, even if it's subtle, even if they don't totally mean to. So naturally, everyone expected at least a tiny bit of that distance to leak out whenever Audrey talked about her family. A guarded answer here, a compliment that stops just short of full praise there. The kind of careful phrasing celebrity kids learn to use the second they realize every single word gets shredded online. What she actually said, though, it told a completely different story. But to really get why her words hit the way they did, you have to rewind to where this whole family story actually started. Because long before there was ever a perfect image to protect, there was a moment that almost tore everything apart before anyone was even thinking about headlines. So what actually went down in the McGraw-Hill house before all the massive fame took over? The moment nobody talks about. Long before Audrey McGraw was singing to sold-out crowds or walking fashion runways, she was a newborn literally fighting for her life. Reporting has confirmed that Tim McGraw and Faith Hill went through a terrifying experience when Audrey arrived prematurely. The exact kind of scary medical situation that no amount of fame, money, or awards can protect a family from. We're talking about a couple at the absolute peak of their careers, 2 of the biggest names in all of country music, and absolutely none of that meant a thing inside that hospital room. It didn't matter how many millions of records they sold or how many stadiums they packed. The only thing that mattered was whether their baby girl was going to pull through. Honestly, this is the part of the story that never really gets the massive headline treatment. Mostly because it doesn't fit the juicy narrative people usually look for. It isn't scandalous. It isn't messy. It's just real. And it's the exact kind of experience that quietly reshapes a family's entire world long before the public ever gets a say in how they're supposed to look. Consider what something like that actually means for a family that spends its whole existence under a microscope. Most of what gets written about Tim McGraw and Faith Hill is all about award shows, chart numbers, and stadium tours. But that hospital room? That's totally different. It's one of the only genuinely vulnerable moments from this family's history that ever made it into the public eye, a moment where all the success in the world couldn't shield them. It's the one story that has zero to do with performance, branding, or their careers. Families who go through something that heavy don't come out on the other side just pretending to be close for the cameras. They come out of it holding on a whole lot tighter, mostly because they know firsthand just how fragile everything actually is. That's definitely not a detail country radio ever brings up, but it might just be the single most important piece of context for understanding everything Audrey ended up saying decades later. It also clears up something else, a detail people almost never connect. Whenever interviewers ask Tim McGraw or Faith Hill about their daughters, both of them instantly light up in a really specific way. It's less like celebrities talking about their polished brand, and way more like parents who just never fully stopped being grateful that their kids are healthy and safe. That kind of reaction doesn't feel like PR or image management. It just feels like relief that never really wore off. There's a reason this whole chapter matters so much to the bigger picture here. Typical scandal stories usually need a clear villain, a victim, or at least some juicy drama to keep people hooked. But a terrifying health scare early in a child's life doesn't give you any of that. It doesn't build resentment between parents and kids. If anything, it does the exact opposite. It locks a family together around a shared memory of how close they came to losing something they could never replace. That isn't how you build a fake, camera-ready family. That's how you build one that actually knows what really matters. So knowing all of that, doesn't her recent praise for her parents suddenly make a whole lot more sense? What Audrey actually said. Fast forward to March 2026. Audrey McGraw is on stage in front of a crowd, and she has every opportunity to say something vague, something diplomatic, something that keeps the tabloids guessing. Instead, she says this, plainly and without hesitation. "I'm so proud of my dad, both of my parents. I love them so much." That's right. She didn't say, "We have a complicated relationship," or "It wasn't always easy." Just straightforward pride and love, said out loud on a stage where anyone with a phone could record it and turn it into a headline. And people did turn it into a headline, just not the kind anyone expected. Because here is the thing about celebrity families. When the relationship is actually strained, you can usually tell. The praise comes out careful, calculated, full of therapy language and diplomatic distance. There is a version of that sentence that famous kids say all the time, something like, "We've had our ups and downs, but we're in a good place now." Audrey's words were not that. They contained no qualifiers, no caveats, no careful hedging. They were the words of someone who genuinely means what she is saying, someone who is not managing an image because there is no image management required. This was not the first time either. Months before that March moment, Audrey had already gone on record praising her father around the time of his Country Music Hall of Fame induction, telling a crowd, "I'm so proud of my dad." Two separate moments, two separate crowds, the exact same sentiment, unprompted, both times. Notice what is missing from both of these moments. There is no mention of a difficult childhood spent on the road, or missing her parents growing up because of their careers. No veiled reference to sacrifices she had to make so they could keep performing. Just pride, repeated consistently, across separate occasions, months apart. with nothing to gain from saying it if it were not true. If this is the pattern, then what happened next should not have surprised anyone. But it still did. Because just months later, Audrey did something that took the entire internet by surprise: live in front of thousands of people at her father's own concert. The Jones Beach Surprise. On July 24, 2026, Tim McGraw was performing at Jones Beach Theater in New York, basically doing what he's done for decades, putting on a killer show for his fans. Except this time around, the night came with a massive plot twist nobody in that venue saw coming. Out of nowhere, his youngest daughter, Audrey, walked right out onto the stage. Now, surprise family cameos happen at country shows all the time. But let's be real. They usually stick to a pretty predictable script. You get a quick wave from the wings, maybe a short little duet, a fast crowd reaction, and then they wrap it up so the headliner can get right back to the set list. But what went down at Jones Beach didn't follow that playbook at all, and that's honestly why it caught everyone's attention. Think about it. If you're trying to build your own name and establish a totally independent career, this is usually the exact moment where you plug your own song. You use the platform to show the audience you can stand on your own 2 feet, completely outside of your parents' massive shadow. And given everything Audrey's been working on with her music and modeling, nobody would have blamed her if she used that crowd to drop a brand new single. But Audrey didn't do any of that. Instead, she covered Stronger, Faith Hill's 2002 hit, and turned the entire performance into a beautiful, direct tribute to her mom. Just think about the motivation behind a move like that, or, honestly, the total lack of PR strategy. Audrey had a massive stage, a packed crowd, and complete creative freedom, and she used every second of it to sing her mother's song at her father's show. Picture the scene for a second. It's Tim McGraw's night, his tour, his arena full of fans who paid to see him. And right in the middle of all that energy, his daughter walks out to perform a song that belongs entirely to Faith Hill. In one single move, Audrey managed to put both of her parents right at the heart of the exact same moment, on a stage that technically only belonged to one of them. That's just not how someone acts if they're holding on to secret bitterness or resentment toward their family. That's the move of someone who wanted, very specifically, to honor both of her parents in the exact same breath, on the exact same night, in front of thousands of people. It takes a lot of heart to turn a quick guest appearance into a tribute like that, and it takes something even rarer to actually want to do it in the first place. So what did Audrey have to say once the applause died down and the moment was over? The unfiltered aftermath. Here's where things get really interesting. Because Audrey didn't just stop at the performance. She went home, or wherever she headed after the show, and posted about it. Twice. In her first post, she wrote that she didn't even have the words to express how much of an honor it was to sing her mom's song at her dad's show, adding, "To be your daughter is an infinite gift. I love y'all so much. I am always so proud and so inspired by you." Look, that isn't a caption written just to farm engagement. That feels like something posted by someone who was still soaking in what she had just done, hours after walking off that stage. And pay attention to that phrasing, infinite gift. Not just a good childhood and not a supportive family. An infinite gift. That isn't the guarded language of someone measuring her words for an audience. That's the voice of someone who genuinely feels lucky, writing it down right in the moment, because she actually means it, not because a publicist handed her a draft. Then came the second post. This time, Audrey shared a clip where she gave Tim a full standing ovation, captioning it, "Love you, Dad. Jones Beach rocked. Thanks for having me out there. So proud of you." Short, direct, and zero hidden meaning to decode. Just a daughter who watched her father light up a stage and couldn't help but celebrate him publicly. 2 posts, 2 different angles, but the exact same message underneath both. Genuine pride, gratitude, and a kind of love that doesn't feel staged for anybody. Honestly, if Audrey were sitting on some secret family drama, this would be a pretty wild way to handle it. Usually, people managing messy family image issues are way more careful, way more distant, and super guarded about what they throw online. They post once, keep it brief, and move on. Audrey did the complete opposite. She posted twice, shared the details, and covered the night from two different perspectives right in the same news cycle. That's just not how you act when you're trying to control a narrative. That's how you act when you simply have a lot to say, because you mean every single word of it. So if none of this points to hidden drama, what then is the actual truth this whole story reveals? The real truth behind the perfect family. Here's the plot twist nobody saw coming. The truth behind Tim McGraw and Faith Hill's perfect family image isn't that it's fake. The truth is, as far as any real evidence goes, it might actually be 100% legit. Look at all the facts. Every piece of verified evidence points back to the exact same conclusion. A daughter who survived a scary premature birth with her parents right by her side. A young woman who, decades later, steps onto massive stages to tell thousands of people how deeply proud she is of her mom and dad. A surprise concert appearance where she chose to celebrate her mother's classic hit, instead of plugging her own project. Nighttime Instagram posts overflowing with genuine gratitude rather than rehearsed PR speak. Honestly, that isn't the language of a family covering up hidden cracks. That's the language of a family that went through something terrifying together early on, survived decades under a ruthless public microscope, and came out the other side way closer, instead of drifting apart. That's worth thinking about, because it goes against almost everything we assume about celebrity culture. The unwritten rule in Hollywood is simple. The bigger the spotlight, the higher the personal cost. Kids of massive superstars are almost expected to grow up resentful, distant, or desperate to sever ties with their parents' brand. We expect that playbook because we've seen it ruin famous families over and over again. Audrey McGraw just doesn't fit that script. She isn't running away from her parents' legacy. She's stepping directly into it, on stage and on her own terms. She's choosing to sing her mother's song at her father's show instead of pushing her own agenda. She's posting about infinite gifts instead of staying quiet or giving vague, PR-friendly answers. Not a single data point points toward hidden drama. So maybe the real story here isn't that Audrey McGraw exposed some dark family secret. Maybe she exposed something way rarer than that. A celebrity family whose public image and private reality actually match up. In an industry built on manufactured relationships and fake reunions, that might just be the most surprising reveal of all. Which leaves us with one final question. Why were we all so convinced they had to be hiding something in the first place? Tim McGraw, Faith Hill, and Audrey have spent years being held up as the family too perfect to be believed. But the receipts, the quotes, the surprise performance, and the posts all say the same thing. Sometimes the public image and the private truth are exactly the same story. Not every celebrity family is hiding something. Sometimes what you see really is what you get. And that might be the hardest twist of all for an industry built on expecting the worst. What do you think? Does this change how you see this family? Let me know in the comments, and if you want more real stories behind the headlines, ones that stick to what is actually verified instead of chasing rumors, subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss one.